Mario. Where should I even start, really? He's easily the most iconic character in any video game. Even if you haven't played a video game in your life, you know who Mario is. Ever since his debut, he's taken the world by storm with his platforming games that are just straight up fun for the entire family. Unlike a lot of Mario's fellow platformer stars in the 80s and 90s, he's been one of the only ones to remain amazingly consistent, which is awesome. He starred in what was one of the greatest games ever made at that point in time, and he's still making masterpieces to this day. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that Mario is one of my favorite video game franchises, since his games are all just awesome. I prefer some more than others, but almost all of his games that he puts out, including the assload of spin-offs he starred in, are just fun. While I am a bigger Sonic fan than I am a Mario fan, I've been meaning to give him more of a spotlight on this channel ever since I started late last year, because I love Mario just as much as the next guy. He was as important to my childhood as Sonic was, and I can't thank the Italian plumber enough for that. So in this long retrospective video, I'm going to be covering his 2D origins, from Super Mario Bros. On the NES all the way to Super Mario World on the SNES. So join me on this retrospective as we discover what made Mario blow up back in the day and solidify himself as the face of gaming. But before diving into his first proper game, I think providing some backstory as to how he came to be is important. The company Nintendo was founded back in 1889, but they were nothing like they were today. They weren't nearly as big, and instead of manufacturing video games, they made Japanese playing cards. Eventually, their company went through some tough times, so in an effort to stay alive, they began prioritizing toys and video games around the 1960s. Most of their games found a home in the arcades and the Game & Watch handheld systems. Shigeru Miyamoto entered his career at Nintendo in 1978 after the hit of Space Invaders, and they went on to create a few arcade games such as Sheriff, Radarscope, and probably the most well-known one from 1981, Donkey Kong. Originally, Nintendo wanted to acquire the license to make an arcade game based on the popular Popeye comic strip, however this didn't work out. Miyamoto created characters to replace the ones they were planning on using from Popeye, and what he ended up with was a love triangle starring a big gorilla named Donkey Kong and a plumber named Jumpman, later changed to Mario, which is named after Mario Segale, the landlord of the original Office Space for Nintendo, and lastly, a lady named Pauline. These characters were inspired by Bluto, Popeye, and Olive Oyl. The game had a budget of $267,000 and hit the arcades July 9th in Japan and July 31st North America, both in the year 1981. The game itself sees you controlling Jumpman or Mario, as you navigate him to the top of the screen where Donkey Kong is with Pauline, while avoiding obstacles that will hurt Mario. He can jump to avoid obstacles, which believe it or not, this is innovative at the time, but falling more than a few feet will result in Mario breaking his fucking legs. Fortunately, you do have ladders to help go up and down. There are other objects you can collect to increase your score, as well as the hammer power-up, which lets Mario destroy any barrels that Donkey Kong throws at him. The game recycles the same 4 boards, but adds more obstacles the more you play them to increase the difficulty. There isn't much else to say besides Donkey Kong is a decently fun game. I don't play it often, but that doesn't mean it's bad or anything. If you haven't played it before, then there's no harm in giving it a shot, and it's very easy to find. I would recommend you play the Game Boy version released in 1994. Trust me, it's a lot more than just a remake, since after you beat that 4th level, a bunch of new creative stages open up that tap into the potential this game had. It's quite a fun puzzle platformer. Donkey Kong was quite a favorable success for Nintendo. By June of 1982, they already sold 60,000 cabinets in the United States alone, adding up to $180 million. The game did have a few sequels. I'm not going to go and review all these games now since they aren't as important to Mario's history. The first one was since it was when he made his debut. What does matter is that Shigeru Miyamoto wanted to do more with Mario himself, so in 1983 saw the release of Mario Bros. For the Game & Watch, arcades and basically everything else. I forgot to mention that Donkey Kong was also ported to lots of other consoles, like the Atari, Commodore 64, and the NES when that came out. Mario Bros. Was no exception. And yes, that's right, at one point Nintendo once ported their game to other consoles. Hard to believe, I know. Anyway, so in Mario Bros, you play as Mario as he actually does some plumbing for once. Enemies will spawn from the pipes above and you have to exterminate them by jumping on the surfaces below them, and then you attack them by just walking up to them. The game will throw in some more enemies that require different methods of being taken down, which makes the game kind of frantic. Something that does make this game a lot more bearable is that, unlike Donkey Kong, Mario doesn't constantly break his legs after jumping a very small gap. However, the title says Mario Bros, implying Mario has a brother, and that's true. His brother is named Luigi, and at this point, his only distinct trait is that he wears green and white against Mario's red and blue. In later games, Luigi's main colors were changed to green and blue, which I can say was for the better. Mario Bros was a modest success, but not as big as Donkey Kong. Personally, I'm more of a Donkey Kong guy than a Mario Bros guy. Hope that isn't what I'm known for when I die. In 1983, Nintendo released their first home console, the Family Computer, or Famicom if you have a brain. It launched in 1985 in North America under the name Nintendo Entertainment System, with launch titles such as Excite Bike, Duck Hunt, Golf, Ice Climbers, Wrecking Crew, and the one all of y'all know about, Super Mario Bros. Here we are, easily one of the most iconic video games ever. It's really easy to see why it blew up like it did, but let's take a deep look at this game and see why it was so loved, and answer the question of whether or not it's still a fun game today. Ah shit, forgot that NES doesn't work anymore. Upon booting the game up, you don't get any text or anything that explains their goal or what the plot is, but like most other Mario games, it barely matters. Let's take a look at the instruction booklet for the plot. One day in the Mushroom Kingdom, the kingdom was invaded by the Koopa, a group of turtles that are known for their black magic. The mushroom people are turned into stones and bricks. And yes, that means that every time you destroy a block, you're committing first-degree murder. I wish I could make a joke about that, but everyone on YouTube who's reviewed this game has already done that. The only one able to restore the mushroom people is Princess Toadstool, the daughter of the Mushroom King. However, she's been kidnapped by the King of the Koopas, who's called Bowser over here in America. So you, as Mario, must set out on a journey to rescue the princess and slaughter all those poor toads stuck inside those blocks. I mean, considering how they're the ones who are always saying the princess is in another castle, it makes me feel less bad. Yeah, Mario actually goes through 8 castles belonging to Bowser. However, only the last one actually has the princess. I like to think that people in 1985 who were first playing this game are pissed off because they just couldn't find the right castle. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Damn it! Super Mario Bros. Is an incredibly simple game. You control Mario, who can move left and right, jump, and also hold down the B button to sprint. Running is actually very important if you want the game to go by a lot faster, since without it, you won't go very fast. However, when running at full speed, Mario can be a bit hard to control due to its slipperiness and stiffness, so sometimes you may want to slow down. There were a few times where I just wished Mario had more precise controls, but this game doesn't ask for those kind of moments of precision nearly as much as some other games, but we'll talk about it later. As Mario, you'll have to reach the end of the stage by avoiding many obstacles like the various enemies you can encounter as well as platforming challenges. The stages themselves are very linear. There are a few secrets you can find that can let you take shortcuts every now and then, but that's mostly it. You can collect coins that basically just increase your score, so that's a plus for the 4 people who care about score in a game like this. Getting 100 coins will give you an extra life, which is definitely useful since you only get 3 lives, and losing all those will boot you back to 1-1. It's definitely a nuisance, but this is 1985, so it isn't really something I can criticize. That's also because you have the warp zones to help you skip to other worlds faster. This definitely isn't a secret, since if you know about this game, then you probably know they exist. In 2 levels, specifically 1-2 and 4-2, you can find secret routes that will lead you to warp zones, that are these places that will take you to other worlds. If you use the warp zone to skip as much of the game as possible, you can beat this game pretty fast. Speedrunners have been able to narrow it down to less than 5 minutes, which is incredible. Speedruns of this game are so interesting just because of how insanely optimized it has been. It's down to the point that the record is shrunken by mere milliseconds. Despite being capable of jumping pretty high for a fat guy, making contact with any enemy results in Mario fucking dying. But in blocks that have question marks on them, you can get one of a few power-ups. The first one is the Super Mushroom that transforms Mario to Super Mario, indicated by his bigger appearance and therefore bigger hitbox. The mushroom is a damn lifesaver, cause it lets you take a free hit before completely dying, at the cost of being reverted back to small Mario. You can also crouch when you have a mushroom on. You might be able to do a cool thing with it every now and then, but don't expect it to be too handy. While being in super form, any mushrooms you'd get will instead be fire flowers, which are even more awesome. It gives Mario this new white and red color, which looks pretty cool, but more importantly, you can shoot fireballs with the B button that can kill basically everything, even King Koopa eventually. Even if it's like another tier beyond the Super Mushroom, taking a hit will throw you all the way back down to small Mario. You don't just lose the fire flower. The last power-up, besides 1-up mushrooms that give you an extra life, is the star. While the instruction booklet calls it the Star Man, but I don't like that name. You could argue that it's better to stick to the actual manual, but I'm not calling Toad mushroom retainers. Anyways, the star makes it completely immune to enemy attacks, as well as give poor little Timmy a seizure because he's epileptic and he just wanted to play some Mario. It even has its own catchy tune while it lasts. Oh yeah, I guess that is a good transition into talking about the music. Well, the game only has a few tracks, most of which are really damn short, but that's what a nerd would say because we all know how awesome the Overworld theme is. It's a really catchy song and it's iconic as hell. The rest of the tracks are all good, in my opinion. Even if they're short and you'll be hearing the same tracks a lot, it doesn't bother me just because I think they're good tracks. Good job, Koji Kondo. Like I said earlier, Super Mario Bros. Actually does have quite a nice enemy variety with different foes that can be taken down in different ways. You have the standard Goomba, which we all know how pathetically easy he is. He's also shaped like a dick. Koopa Troopas will start hiding in their shell after you jump on them, and you can kick it around. It's fun to combo a lot of enemies with it, but it ricochets off of walls, so be careful. They come in 2 different colors, green and red, which actually have a difference in their behavior that I didn't know for the longest time. Green ones will walk off platforms and red ones won't. There's also the Paratroopas that have wings, which will require an extra hit due to the wings. Buzzy Beetles are like Koopa Troopas, but they're immune to fireballs. You can find piranha plants lurking in pipes that'll stick out every now and then and bite you in the ass. If you're close to a pipe, they don't come out for whatever reason. Some levels will have Lakitu up in the sky, and he'll throw Spinies at you. You can't jump on Spinies at all, so it makes levels more challenging. But if you're high enough, you can actually take out Lakitu, which is really satisfying. Bullet bills can be fired from cannons that you can't destroy. You can jump on bullet bills, so they aren't impossible, but they do make the gameplay more tense. Lastly, we have the Hammer Bros, and fuck these guys. They throw hammers that are really damn hard to avoid, on top of being unpredictable. Usually the game will place them over bricks, which makes them a lot easier, but when it's nothing but you and the Hammer Bros, say a prayer before you die. This Hammer Bro right at the end of 8-4 is fucking evil, man, I tell you. Man, these guys just suck. Underwater, you can find some enemies like the Blooper, which will chase you, and you can't kill them without the Fire Flower. And yes, you can use fireballs underwater, of course you can. Like Hammer Bros, these guys can be pretty unpredictable since they chase you. Look at this intense battle I had with the Blooper on one level. God damn. Cheap Cheeps are commonly found underwater, and all these guys really do is just swim. But on land, they'll come flying up from the ground, so be careful, because you can get hit by one in the blink of an eye. The game only has a few main level themes. There's the Overworld levels. Sometimes these ones will have a night sky in the background, or you'll be doing some platforming on trees instead. The underground levels, which only really give a visual difference. And the underwater levels, where you're swimming instead of running, which shakes things up a bit, but a water level can only be so fun. Due to the limited level themes, a lot of levels can blend together, which isn't that much of a bad thing, to be honest. Some of the Overworld levels will have Cheap Cheeps coming from the ground constantly, which does force you to stay on your toes, but it can feel a little cheap when dying from one you couldn't react to fast enough. Lastly, you have the castle levels, which are placed at the end of each world, and they're usually the hardest due to the scarce power-ups and all the obstacles in your way. Some castle levels are like mazes where you have to take the right path, which usually has no indication to distinguish it from the rest, and the stage will constantly loop until you get it right. I've never liked these kind of stages since, let's be honest, just wandering around to eventually look up a guide isn't fun, nor challenging. Yeah, I've played this game a lot, but I can't remember the specific routes for these levels. Can you? Yeah, I didn't think so. These levels always cap off with the fight against King Koopa himself, which, okay, that actually isn't true since the real Bowser is only in the last castle and the rest are apparently fake. These aren't much of boss fights since all you have to do is just get past Bowser by either going under him or jumping over him and activating this axe to destroy the ground he's standing on. Kind of a dumbass thing to do if he just stands there waiting to possibly get killed by Mario. Why doesn't he just sit back and wait to swing the axe when Mario shows up? Whatever. At first, the encounters will be pretty easy since all Bowser does is jump and you have this platform too. By the end of the game, you'll lose a platform and he throws hammers, which definitely makes it more difficult, but it isn't very hard still. The game also has a multiplayer mode, which isn't much of a multiplayer mode, since you just take turns after Mario or Luigi dies. Aside from that, what else can I say really? 36 years later, I still think this game is solid and has aged decently well. The graphics are fine, the sprites as iconic as these are really hard to get mad at, but there are some other things that haven't aged well, like the somewhat slippery control, the fact the screen can't move left like at all, and the lack of a save system. But in the end, I just think it's a fun game that everyone should play. I mean, if you haven't played this game before, then what the hell is wrong with you? It's like the video game, you know? There's a reason why old people classify every console as a Nintendo. It's a great entry point into the land of video games because of how simple it is. It isn't super beginner friendly since, like a lot of games from this age, it can get kind of difficult at times, but nothing too absurd. For now at least. Overall, Super Mario Bros. Is a good game that I always enjoy playing every now and then, but I wouldn't call it a masterpiece. It has its flaws, but still. That doesn't detract from the fact that it's a simple and fun game that everyone can pick up and play. All good things have sequels. Crash Bandicoot 2, Parappa the Rapper 2, The Brave Little Toaster, and of course this would include Mario. I mean, with a success as big as that one, why would they not make a sequel? In 1986, the Famicom saw the release of an add-on called the Famicom Disk System. As the name suggests, it allows the Famicom to use floppy disks to store games that had better storage capacity. Nintendo planned for all their big future releases to be on the disk system. To boost sales, they made the sequel to their most popular game exclusive to that add-on, making it the best-selling game on the peripheral. But how does the game hold up today, you may be wondering? Well, to get to the point, I really don't like this game. The first thing you'll notice is that it looks very similar to the first game. Some textures have been tweaked a little, like the dirt in the trees, as well as the clouds and bushes now having eyes. The text has a drop shadow to make it easier to see. Personally, I can usually tell the difference between the two games, but as an outsider, it can be pretty hard to tell the difference. If the disc system really was more powerful, you'd think they'd take advantage of that with a Mario game better than ever before, but they didn't do that. Even if you're someone who doesn't really play Mario games, you can tell that a game like Super Mario Bros. 3 is a later entry since the graphics are a lot lot better, but that isn't really the case with this game. The music is also the exact same with no alterations or new themes. Not to mention, the story is the exact same. Bowser kidnaps Peach, so go save her, you fat Italian. Mario also controls the exact same, which in my opinion, is definitely an issue because of this fucking level design. Yeah, the cat's out of the bag now. This game is fucking difficult. I bet that's something you never heard before. As soon as you boot up the game, you'll see a paratrooper charging right towards your ass, as well as a poison mushroom right at the beginning of 1-1, which really sets the tone of how frustrating this game is. Not to mention, the game makes you work hard for that first mushroom. The poison mushroom really is one of the only new things in this game. It's just a mushroom that kills you, so you have to avoid it. There's also the new red piranha plants, which are a lot faster, and they come out if you're right next to them, but not on top. The hammer bros will also charge towards you, and like, what the fuck were they thinking with this? This makes them so much more of a pain in the ass to deal with, and you already know how much I hated them in the first game. Out of all the enemies to tweak besides the piranha plants, why the hell did it have to be the damn hammer bros? Also, why the hell does Springs launch Mario so damn high? Hello, are you gonna come back down? Oh, god damn it. Some levels also have wind, which is nothing but a nuisance since it'll fuck with your precision, and you already know precise jumps can be a pain in the ass with these controls. The level design is a lot more challenging, which is really annoying when the controls get in the way with the wonky momentum. Like, look at this one part of 2-4. Just dropping down and holding right, which I assure you is what most people will try doing, will end up killing you. You have to start holding right again, which is really fucking stupid. When playing this game, I just said, what the fuck, to myself so many times. This is the game where I think frustrating is a better term to use than hard or difficult, because this game really fucking frustrated me. In fact, I can say this is the most frustrating game I've ever played. Yes, I'm serious. Why the fuck does this game love using paratroopers over bottomless pits so damn much? I always cringe when I see one of them because of how annoying it is to do with these damn controls. Not only positioning yourself with the wonky momentum, but estimating how high you'll bounce off it. I remember one time the game makes you do a leap of faith just to see a fucking paratrooper bounce. Like, how the fuck am I supposed to know that was there? And I literally just had to keep on trying until I timed it right some fucking how and I landed on it. Sometimes this game just feels like a really shitty Mario Maker course, like those times where the level design just dies and you're left with this. What the fuck am I looking at here? If I didn't know that I had to fish through the right invisible blocks here, then I probably would have tried leaping to my fucking death in case it was one of those leaps of faith. Not to mention times where the enemy placement or obstacles just feels super fucking cheap. And instead of being like, my bad, I need to react faster and I should have seen it coming, it always just feels like the game is laughing at you. Do you remember those times in Mario Maker, those really shitty troll levels, where you hit your head on an invisible block and it plays that stupid ass laughing sound effect? While it usually isn't as dickish as that, a lot of the levels feel like that. Since this game is just so similar to the first one, this means none of the issues from the first game are ironed out, like the inability for the screen to move backward or the stubborn controls. This game does add Luigi as his own playable character and also ditch the 2-player mode, but I see no reason to play as Luigi. He has shitty friction with the higher jump. This would go on to be Luigi's defining gameplay trait, and while I can usually enjoy playing him in other games, I never want to fucking play as him in this game, and I highly advise you not to. Also, don't forget that if you lose your measly 3 lives, your ass is sent back to the start of the world you died in. Don't get me wrong, this is definitely better than the first game, where you would restart back at 1-1 every single time, but it's hard to be thankful because of how frustrating the game is. The game still has warp zones, and what's interesting is that all of them only have one pipe, but a few of them take you fucking backwards. What the actual fuck is the point of this? Please tell me, what reason would I have to go back to 1-1 if I'm in World 3? I'll just reset the game at that point, or even better, just stop playing in general because this game is ass shit smeared on a donkey's balls. Those maze levels I hated from the first game are back with a damn vengeance. 8-4 is so fucking confusing, I swear. And I remember seeing a non-castle level that loops. Like, what the fuck? I don't need more of these abysmal levels. 3-4 might just be one of the worst levels in the entire game. It's a castle level that loops, but the right path literally forces you to be Small Mario. What the fuck? Do you guys know how hard it is to hold on to one of those damn things in this game? Not to mention, on the looping path there's literally a block that'll give you a mushroom. So the last thing I would expect is the path on the bottom to be the right one. Also, this jump right here is fucking impossible. What the hell is this game design, Nintendo? I looked up the right path and it just told me to stick to the top, but the jump to stay up there is fucking impossible. Is there something I'm missing here? Oh, would you look at that? They were fucking ghost blocks. God damn, what's with this fetish for the ghost blocks? It makes it feel a lot like a Mario Maker course. God, what a pain in the ass that level was. That's really just the best way to describe this game, as such a pain in the ass. Nintendo assumed that those looking for a sequel are ones that truly master the first game, which doesn't make a lot of sense in my opinion. This sequel is literally just the first game, but harder. Barely any new content or mechanics. It's just new level design created by Satan himself, featuring the same story, same controls, same music, almost the the same visuals. If you beat the game with no warp zones like I did, because I didn't even know where to find them, you get this 9th world, but I couldn't be bothered with that shit. Not to mention, this level looks like ass. I saved Peach's ass again, and that's all that matters. And no fucking way I'm beating this game 8 times in a row for World A through D. When I beat 8-4, I let out a sigh of relief, so I can say that I never have to play this game ever again. I really didn't like this game. It's so fucking frustrating and never in a fair way. No amount of emulator save states can make me enjoy this god-awful game. I apologize for swearing so much in this part of the video, but this game just makes me that frustrated, which rubbed off into my writing, I guess. Look, maybe if you're a speedrunner of the first game or someone who's just really good with Mario's controls in that game, then maybe you'll find a little enjoyment out of the sadistic level design, but for me, no thanks. It's just too difficult and too similar to the first game. Yeah, well, apparently, I'm not the only one who thought that. When the game was brought over to Nintendo of America for localization, Howard Phillips, the man that would evaluate whether or not games are fit to release here in North America, put his controller down, astonished by how painful the game was. He even described it as punishment. Considering how this was still only a few years after the video game crash of 1983, having a sequel to one of the most popular games ever be extremely punishing and really similar to the first game wouldn't be a good idea. He also thought that by the time they were able to convert the game from the disc to the cartridge, it would be outdated, which led them to never releasing the disc drive here in North America, and to instead just reskin another game into a Mario game and call it Super Mario Bros. 2. So us Americans never got this game officially. Was that for the better? Of course it fucking was! The game didn't see an official release everywhere else until 1993 in the Super Mario All-Stars collection for the SNES, where the game was remade, but I still don't really enjoy it. But why am I even telling you all this? The story behind how different Mario 2 is like the video game fun fact, you know? Anyways, for the one person who clicked on this video by accident, and by the way, whoever you are, thank you for staying this long and I hope you've enjoyed the video so far. That game just so happened to be Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic. Doki Doki Panic was a game actually created by a lot of the people who made Super Mario Bros., with the team being led by Shigeru Miyamoto. It was a collaboration with Nintendo and Fuji Television to create a game to promote some kind of festival. Look, if you want a real deep dive into the story of Super Mario Bros. 2, then watch the Gaming Historian's video. He does a great job explaining everything and goes into a lot of detail about lost levels, how it was rejected, and even the development of Doki Doki Panic. The game was released on July 10th, 1987 for the Famicom Disk System, and the reworked version containing Mario and Friends was released on October 9th, 1988. Believe it or not, there are some more differences besides the characters being replaced by Mario characters and the story being completely changed as a result. The original game had a save system which was removed, but in that game you had to beat it as all 4 characters to get the true ending. In this version the save feature is absent, but you'll be fine just beating it once. Mario Bros. 2 also has a run button to be more in line with the original games, which makes the game better in my opinion, as well as a few other visual tweaks to make it fit into the Mario universe. Now, let's actually take a look at Super Mario Bros. 2 and see if it's still a good game overall, regardless of its long history. Also, just to get this out there, I may have some bias towards the other games, like, except for Lost Levels of course, because I grew up playing and loving games like Mario 1, Mario 3, and Mario World, but I don't really play this one very often actually. This video was my first time actually playing through the entire game and beating it, so I'm not nearly as experienced with this one as I am with the others. Anyways, let's begin. Unlike Lost Levels, the story here is actually different. Very different. There's no Bowser, there's no Mushroom Kingdom, and you aren't rescuing Princess Peach since she's actually along for the journey. If you wait on the title screen, the game actually does make a little effort to tell you what's going on, even if it doesn't really matter, but I'm just gonna take it from the manual since it obviously goes into detail. One day, Mario has a strange dream where he sees a staircase leading to a door. He opened the door and a world that was completely new to him spread before his eyes, the world of Subcon. A voice cries out to Mario saying they're under the spell of Wart, this giant frog thingy, and they need Mario to help them by defeating Wart and returning Subcon to its natural state. The next day, Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Princess Peach go on a picnic. They enter a cave for whatever reason, and they find a staircase leading to a door that looks exactly like the one in Mario's dream. They open the door and they're thrown right into the world of Subcon, so after that point you'll have to travel through the 7 worlds to defeat Wart and save Subcon. As soon as you're plotted into 1-1, it'll become very obvious just how different this game is. You can't jump on enemies. Instead of just giving enemies a bop on the head, you'll have to throw something at them like vegetables you can pull up from the ground, or other enemies. Okay, well they aren't that different on a core level since they're platformers, but in terms of platformer mechanics, yeah, they're quite different. And that's because of this reason. This approach to enemy design is something I've never really seen in a platformer, and it makes it so unique, you know? I do think that this game's unique mechanics does allow for some creative platforming at times. You're now also able to crouch and charge your jump to gain even more height, which is definitely useful if the character you're playing as can't make certain jumps. more on that later. I do think this game actually controls quite a lot better than the first two games. It was passable but could be janky at times and infuriating in the lost levels, but in this game, I don't have issues with the control nearly as often. It's not perfect, since I think the characters can move a little too fast at times, since you'll blast off as soon as you start moving, which may catch you off guard a few times, but overall I do think it's quite an improvement. Oh yeah, you now have a health bar in this game, which makes it feel pretty different. You can have as many as 4 health points, I think, and they can be replenished by floating hearts that'll appear every now and then, and really dude, why the fuck can they spawn inside of walls? That's annoying. The most common way you'll restore your health is by finding mushrooms, usually in subspace. Sometimes when pulling something out of the ground, you'll grab a potion that upon throwing will create a door that leads you to subspace. Subspace leads you to a mirrored room reflecting the stage design, and anything you'll pull up from the ground will give you coins, and more importantly, the mushroom. You do have to throw the potion in the right spot to be able to grab the mushroom, since the camera doesn't move at all in subspace, and you're teleported out after like 5 seconds. Oh yeah, the camera can also move left in this game. That's a nice quality of life feature. Some levels can also feature vertical segments where you progress by going up or down, not just right all the time. The fire flower is gone, and this game has no new power-ups, but you can get stars in this game. You'll probably see some cherries scattered across levels. Well, apparently collecting a few will cause a star to spawn, which, like in the other games, lets you just dash through all the enemies. Instead of traditional power-ups, you just have items you can pull up from the ground that'll help you defeat some enemies and stuff, like vegetables that you can throw at enemies, turtle shells that function like they did in the last game, but a lot slower, like damn. Bombs will explode after a few seconds, but throwing them can be a little clunky, which can get annoying when you have to destroy a wall, since it has to be exactly 1 block from said wall. Could have used a little more polish. You can pick up keys that you'll have to carry to lock doors, but when you're holding one, a Phanto will chase you. He can be a little unpredictable, but nothing too bad, and if you really need to, just drop the key and pick it up again. The difficulty has definitely been turned down quite a few notches since Lost Levels cranked it to 15, but like a lot of NES games, I wouldn't say it's easy. I'm not really sure if I can say this game was tougher than the first game, since in that game the controls could get in your way every now and then. I feel like the difficulty in this game is more fair since you control a lot better, but don't be surprised if you die a few times on a level. That is pretty standard for most NES games around this time. Scoring extra lives is actually a lot easier, since after each level you can play this slot machine with the coins you collect, and getting a match will net you an extra life, which is definitely handy. But of course, I can't go any further without mentioning the 4 playable characters, which is one of this game's most defining traits and one of my favorite parts. I mean, what's not to love about having 4 different characters to play as, each with their own strengths and weaknesses? You can swap characters after every level, which is really cool. Mario is the average Joe. He doesn't really have any strengths, but he has no weaknesses either. He's my personal favorite since he's always the safe option, you know? If you're worrying about not knowing what you're about to get into with a level, just choose Mario, since the other characters can be worse than others depending on the level. Luigi plays similarly to the Lost Levels, but this interpretation is definitely better. He has a lot more airtime. He's also weaker than Mario when it comes to picking up things. In Lost Levels, you can really tell the game was designed around Mario, and while he does have a higher jump in my opinion, he doesn't add anything to make him better than Mario, because slippery control is the last thing I'd want in that game. Instead of just having a higher jump, Luigi has a lot more airtime in this game, so you can correct your positioning if you have to, but how fast the characters accelerate may become an issue in trying to do that. He can also make Birdo fights a little harder than they need to be, because it's harder to land on the eggs. Toad is the strongest out of all the characters, and on top of that, he's the fastest. But he definitely has the weakest jump out of them all, so he isn't a very good pick for more platform-heavy levels. Princess Peach is the weakest of the 4 as well as the slowest. However, she has the ability to hover in the air for a few seconds, which is very useful since you can just straight up skip stuff. If you aren't very good at video games, I would recommend Peach, but if you're just new to the game, I would still recommend Mario. The level design is better than all the games so far. That doesn't mean much when talking about Lost Levels, since like all of my Mario Maker courses from 2 years ago have better level design, but just talking about Mario 1, it's an improvement. Like I said earlier, it's a more fair challenge in Mario 1, but this one may be a little harder. Maybe I'm just saying that because I beat this game for the first time in this video, and I've beaten Mario 1 countless times, but I thought that this game was just more challenging. Is that an unpopular opinion? I don't know. This game just has more mechanics to work with to bring more variety, not to mention better control. The game has a total of 20 levels that are spread across 7 worlds with 3 levels each, except World 7. Yeah, you're so quirky. That may sound like a step back since Mario 1 and Lost Levels had 32 courses, not counting the bonus ones, but the levels here are much longer, and they're also a lot more memorable thanks to actual level themes. They aren't all distinct. Worlds like World 1 and World 3 don't exactly have a theme, but some do. Worlds 2 and 6 are desert themed, World 4 is ice themed, containing lots of slippery surfaces, World 7 mostly takes place in the sky when you aren't in some kind of castle, and World 5 takes place during the night. I mean, at least it's something. This is definitely a change for the better, since in the first game, worlds were really just compilations of courses. Besides difficulty, there isn't really much separating World 2 from World 7 in Mario 1. The world does follow a structure, with the first two levels being normal stages, usually capped off with the Birdo encounter, and the third level is the longest and contains a unique boss, but I'll talk about bosses later. Something I did think was pretty cool is how some worlds are best when playing as a certain character. The two desert worlds feature a few segments where you have to dig up a lot of sand, which can be best handled by Toad, and the slippery surfaces of World 4 makes the princess a good pick, since you can hover over tricky obstacles. Luigi is also a good pick for vertical levels due to his high jump. This game actually has a lot more enemies than the other games, however they're all different. Yeah, there isn't a single one that returns, not even Bowser. Because of the large amount, there's a better variety than the other games, even if most of them are just killed by throwing something at them. I don't want to run down all of the enemies because that would take a while, but if you've played this game before, then you'll know what I mean. What is interesting is how some of them have become staple Mario enemies, or common ones at the very least, like Shy Guy, Pokey, Bob-ombs, and Birdo, and they weren't even meant to be in a Mario game. Mario Bros. 2 is also definitely a step up in terms of bosses. The only boss from the first two games was just Bowser, which wasn't much of a boss because you just have to get past him, so he's essentially just a tough enemy. Now, all of the bosses have health bars and different attack patterns. You'll fight Birdo at the end of almost every level. All you have to do is just jump on Birdo's eggs that it'll shoot and throw them back at it. They up the challenge by adding in fireballs, and sometimes Birdo won't shoot eggs at all, and you'll instead have to grab blocks and throw them at it. It's a decent boss. Never really got that repetitive because it's so simple. One of the many bosses you'll face at the end of a world is Mouser. He stays up on this platform and throws bombs at you, so you'll have to throw them back at him. Be careful though, since bombs detonate after a few seconds, so you'll have to consider other bombs before going to grab one, and you'll have to be very quick at throwing it, which may actually screw you over. There's also Triclyde, featured in the desert worlds. He's a three-headed serpent who will only just shoot fireballs at you, so you have to pick up these blocks and throw them at him. It's a little trickier than it sounds, because he fires pretty frequently, so you'll have to find the perfect time when he's not shooting to throw them at him. World 4 has a fight against Fry Guy. All he does is fly around shooting fireballs, but it is kinda tricky. Once you hit him with the mushroom blocks 3 times, he'll split into 4 tinier versions of himself, which are pretty fast. You can take out multiple at once, so I recommend trying to do that. World 5 features Claw Grip, a crab that chucks boulders at you. Most of the time he throws them directly at you, so you'll have to dodge it first before you can throw it at him. This one isn't that hard once you get the hang of jumping over the rocks. The last level, 7-2, actually has 2 bosses. You have this mini boss against the very same bird door you use to exit levels, and I'm not even gonna lie to you guys, I just ran straight into that motherfucker. I don't know why seeing it flash wasn't a red flag for me. The fight is fairly simple since he just flies around, and you'll throw mushroom blocks at him. But finally, we have the final boss, Wart, the one who casts a spell on the inhabitants of Subcon. And you know, there's a reason why he hasn't made an appearance after this game besides being from Doki Doki Panic, and that's because he's an absolute dumbass. His only attack is just him firing bubbles at you that'll also kick the frame rate in the balls, but his weakness is vegetables, so you'll have to grab the vegetables that are coming out of a machine in his very own room and throw them into his mouth. That's so fucking stupid. That's like if I was allergic to peanuts and just had a nice can of Jif peanut butter on my desk. To be fair, Bowser was also a dumbass by standing on a bridge that Mario could conveniently just drop him into the lava with, but at least with that, if he actually used it properly, he could simply just pull it from under Mario and kill him. Having the very thing you're weak to be in your own lair is just plain asinine. It serves no damn purpose. Anyways, after thwarting Wart's evil plans, Mario finally frees the people of Subcon, and we then learn that it was all a dream. Well, I guess that explains all the wacky shit this game had. Wait, does this also mean that Mario had a dream inside of his dream when he saw the staircase? Man, what was I thinking not beating this game until now? I had a great time with Super Mario Bros. 2. It's often considered the black sheep of 2D Mario games, especially since it's not even a Mario game technically, but who cares? I love its unique approach to enemy design, and I had a blast with all the playable characters because of the choice it gives the player. The difficulty is more appropriate in my opinion, and the better controls make it more fair. I also think that this game's soundtrack is better than Mario 1, featuring lots of great tracks like the Overworld theme, Underground theme, Boss theme, and more. Even if it is debatably not even a Mario game, it still surprisingly improves on basically everything established in the first game, and was very influential for the series. If you haven't played Mario 2 before, I really recommend you do so because it's super fun, trust me. The American version of Mario Bros. 2 sold very well despite not being a real Mario game. Most gamers back then played it and loved it anyway. But over in Japan, their last Mario game was The Lost Levels, which, like I went into earlier, it sucked. Gamers wanted more Mario, and Miyamoto and his team at Nintendo Research and Development 4 also wanted to make more. They wanted to make the ultimate Mario game that would prove Nintendo was a force to be reckoned with. It started development back in 1986 and took over 2 years to complete. It had a budget of $800,000, being pretty damn expensive back then. It was definitely worth the wait, however, since when it came out in Japan on October 23rd, 1988, it was praised to high heavens by critics and fans. Many still consider this game one of the best games on the NES. We wouldn't see a release in North America until February 12th, 1990. Around the time the game was released in Japan, our version of Mario Bros. 2 was actually only a few weeks old. They wanted that game to have its time in the spotlight for a while, and on top of that, there was a ROM chip shortage around that year, which led to some other games being delayed like Zelda 2 Adventure of Link. Nintendo had to buy time before the release of Mario Bros. 3, so they got a movie in 1989 called The Wizard to do the job. The movie was about this kid named Jimmy with PTSD who's really good at video games, so he enters a tournament where he plays video games and he wins a cash prize. I know that's very brief, and that's because I didn't feel like watching the entire movie for this video. But the reason why I bring this up in a Mario video is because in the finals of the tournament, the contestants played Super Mario Brothers 3! This is probably what most people know the movie for today, since it showed gameplay of Mario 3 before it released here in America, which got everyone hyped to play the new Mario game. Critically, the movie was panned by critics for just being an ad for Nintendo that just so happened to be a movie, since it featured lots of other Nintendo products besides Mario 3. It was a moderate success in the box office, however. Now let's jump to 1990 when it finally saw a release here in North America. Is it still one of the best NES games? Absolutely, I fucking love this game. It's one of my favorite Mario games actually. It takes everything from Mario 1 in The Lost Levels and improves it in every way on top of having so much more content and things to do. Let's start with the story. Ever since the events of the last games, the Mushroom Kingdom has been a peaceful place, but the same can't be said for the Mushroom World. Apparently, Bowser found someone to mate with and unleashed his 7 children, otherwise known as the Koopalings, to conquer all the countries and steal the magic wands belonging to each king. They even use their wands to turn them into animals. It's up to Mario and Luigi to set out and defeat all of Bowser's little offsprings and save all of the kings. This is still a Mario game though, so after the 7th world, Bowser goes and captures Peach while Mario's off dealing with the Koopalings. I guess he's gotten smarter after the first game by distracting Mario first. And that's all there is to this story. I can appreciate how it introduces the Koopalings even if they have not the best reputation thanks to the new Super Mario Bros. Series, but they're cool. Something I've always liked about this game was a theatrical setting. As soon as you boot up the game, the curtains rise to show the title screen, some objects are bolted to the background, and instead of sliding down flagpoles, Mario walks off stage. Miyamoto has confirmed it was a stage play, and I've always thought that was cool. Imagine watching something like this live. Boo! One of the major additions to Mario 3 that will become a staple in the series are the world maps. Instead of going through stages in a linear order, you're brought back to the world map in between the action stages. Sometimes the game gives you a choice of which stage to tackle next, so if you choose one and you don't really like it or you're just struggling, you can go play that other one. The worlds themselves are also a hell of a lot bigger. Instead of having 4 stages, these worlds can have up to 10, and that's not including the fortresses and airship levels. There are some other attractions you'll find on the world map, like toad houses. These places have a few chests, and choosing one will give you a power-up. There's also the spade panels that let you play this little slot machine minigame. Lining up an icon will let you some extra lives. However, it's a lot harder than it looks because of how delayed it is. You can also play this card minigame, where you have to match 2 icons, and if you get 2 wrong, you're booted out of the stage. These only appear every now and then, so you'd better take notes of which one are what, so you don't have to constantly get booted out. Hammer Bros will usually wander on the world map. If you run into one, then you'll be forced to fight 1 or 2 of them. However, they go down pretty quickly. The game usually puts them above blocks, which like I said for Mario 1, it makes them a lot easier to defeat. You'll even get a power-up for killing one of them. In Toad Houses, you can find music blocks that put Hammer Bros to sleep, so if you just don't feel like dealing with them, then there you go. I usually just fight them anyway since they're pretty easy and you get rewards too. If there's ever a level you just straight up don't want to play, then you can use Lakitu's Cloud to completely skip over a level, including fortresses as well. I love the addition of the world map because of how many opportunities it'll give you to score extra lives, more power-ups, or even skip over levels. Things like these keys really make the game more accessible to newcomers because of how easy it is to get a crap load of lives. You also have an inventory where you can store a crap load of power-ups. You can equip one of them before a level, which is awesome. Mario 3 has a total of 8 worlds to travel through, and since they're all different countries, they all look very distinct, so you'll never struggle with differentiating them. Mario 2 USA was a step in the right direction, but not all the worlds had their own themes, and there were 2 desert worlds. World 1 is the grassland. It's your typical introduction world that gets you ready for the challenges up ahead by introducing you to the mechanics. World 2 is called Desert Hills, featuring pyramids, quicksand, and at one point even the fucking sun will try to kill you. With Koopa shells, you can actually kill the sun, but for some reason the sun exploding doesn't single-handedly cause the destruction of the galaxy. The third world is Oceanside, featuring many water levels. Frog suits will be your best friend here. This world has my favorite world map, because if you use a hammer to destroy these rocks over here, you can grab a boat and sail to other islands that will have toad houses and other things to help you get more lives. Besides that, yeah, this world blows. This fortress is where my casual runs go to die. Big Island is the fourth world, where all the enemies and blocks are pretty big. It's certainly unique, but it isn't very challenging. World 5 takes place in the sky. At first, you'll start out on land, but eventually you'll be doing lots of platforming up on the clouds. Make sure you save some raccoon leaves for this world, because they're great with letting you correct jumps before you land. Iceland, the sixth world, features lots of ice that makes it pretty slippery and overall one of the more challenging worlds. World 7 is Pipe Maze, where most of the levels are mazes. This is how you do maze levels right, unlike the other games that would just make the levels loop. It has a nice concept, but in my opinion it dragged on for a while. The Castle of Koopa is the 8th and final world. It contains many auto-scrollers, as you'll be on Bowser's tanks and airships. It has some of the more tougher levels in the game. The actual gameplay is quite a step up from all the previous games. First of all, Mario controls beautifully here. There's no wonky momentum, nor do you accelerate too fast. It's near perfection. I've heard some people complain about how Mario was a little more floaty in this game, but I've always liked it. Mario 3 also sees the introduction of the P meter. By holding down the run button, you can gain momentum over time, like in Mario 1. But once all these arrows are filled up, you'll reach top speed, where Mario puts his arms behind him and runs incredibly fast. You can also jump really high too, while it lasts. Why is it called a P meter? I have no idea. It's a great addition nonetheless. Mario can also pick up Koopa shells by holding down the B button, and slide down slopes to defeat any enemies in your path. Oh yeah, I just realized, are there even slopes in the other games? I don't think so. Another pretty nice change is how if you have a power-up like Beyond the Mushroom, like a Fire Flower for example, you don't revert all the way back to Small Mario after getting hit, you just revert back to Super Mario with no power-up. It always made sense to be like this, because you always have to go from Small Mario to Super Mario to a power-up, so this is a nice quality of life benefit. Instead of sliding down a flagpole or entering a bird's mouth to end stages, you instead go off stage and hit this block that can either give you a mushroom card, a fire flower card, or a star card. You can hold 3 of them, and you can score a few 1-ups depending on which card you have and how many of them. If you get 3 stars, which can usually be obtained by hitting the block at P speed, then you'll get 5 extra lives. Now that's awesome. On top of having some of the best controls in the 2D games, Mario 3 has one of my favorite lineup of power-ups in the entire Mario series. Seriously, they're all awesome. We get the return of the Fire Flower, as well as the other power-ups from the other games, but we have a lot of new ones, mainly the Tanuki Leaf, which transforms Mario into Tanuki Mario. With this, you can wag your tail to destroy blocks and kill enemies, and you can also slow your descent by mashing the B button. If you can get a running start, then you can take off and fly through the sky to skip obstacles or find secrets up in the air. I'd say this one is my favorite, but technically that would be the Tanuki suit, since it's objectively better. It gives Mario a full suit and not just the ears and tail, but frankly I've always thought that the Tanuki Leaf getup looks cooler. The reason this one is technically better is because you can transform into this statue by holding down and pressing the B button, which lets you be completely invincible for a little bit. This one is a lot more rare however, and the Tanuki Leaf is one of the more common power-ups. You can also find the P-Wing, usually given to you by Peach's letters, and they let you completely fly over a level as long as you don't take a hit, and after one level it just turns into a normal Tanuki Leaf. The frog suit lets you swim freely underwater, but it's pretty shit on land since you have to leap everywhere. These will be immensely useful in the third world because it's filled with water levels, and just like the frog suit on land, that world is shit. There's also the Hammer Bro suit, where you can finally become one of those motherfuckers and throw hammers that can kill almost any enemy. It's a little harder to use than the Fire Flower, since they travel in an arc, so you'll have to adjust to that, but I really love this thing. And you can even duck to resist fire hazards. Yeah, time to finally give those motherfuckers a taste of their own medicine! But you can't forget the Goomba Shoe power-up. It's only featured in one level, being 5-3, which kinda sucks because this thing is pretty fun to use. You get to walk around in this big shoe, which I've always thought to be pretty humorous, and you can stomp on enemies you usually wouldn't be able to defeat, which makes it awesome. It's a real shame it only appears in one level. Like, come on guys. Miyamoto's goal was to have tons of power-ups to aid players, and I think he really succeeded in doing that, as well as just having really fun power-ups in general. What really helps is how you can carry an ass load of them. The level design is very solid too. It features many new enemies to encounter and new types of obstacles. The game introduces a lot of new gimmicks and enemies along the way, so the gameplay always feels fresh. The stages themselves are pretty bite-sized, since they don't feature checkpoints and will usually only take a minute or two to complete. I've always liked this approach. The game can get a little challenging at times, but this usually isn't an issue because of how many opportunities you'll have to score 1-ups. This game also saw the introduction of auto-scrolling levels, where the camera pans automatically and it's your job to keep up with it. I always hear people say that these stages suck, and I can understand why so many people think that, but I don't really mind these stages, since they move at a moderate speed and most of the time, it creates tension in the level. Mario 3 introduces a few more types of stages, like fortresses. These are usually spread across the worlds, and they're like mini castle levels from the previous game that want you dead. They always cap off with a fight against Boom Boom. There's also the airship levels, which are always at the end of each world rather than the castle levels. They're always auto-scrollers, but the airships will have lots of cannons and other projectiles to avoid, as you have to keep up with the camera that's actually pretty slow. They feature a boss against one of the 7 Koopalings at the end. Before talking about those boss fights, let's discuss the enemies. Taking a look at the new enemies, we have Paragoombas, which are just Goombas with wings that take an extra hit to kill. Buzzy Beetles can now lurk on ceilings. Spike is this green dude that'll throw spike balls at you when you get close. Dry Bones is the skeleton of a Koopa Troopa who can't be damaged with fire, and he'll come back to life after stomping on him. Thwomps will try to crush Mario if he gets close. Boomerang Brothers are like Hammer Bros but have boomerangs and are therefore easier. Piranha Plants can now shoot fireballs, and some will even have spike balls above them. Roto Discs spin around and are usually found in castles. I've always classified these nuclear waffles as more of an obstacle, but it is an enemy according to the manual. Rocky Wrenches are usually found on airships and will peek out and throw wrenches at you. Boos are these ghosts that you can't damage without a star or Hammer Bro suit. They cover their eyes when you're looking at them but slowly creep up when you're looking away. Try not to look at its name though, it scares the shit out of me. And lastly, we have Chain Chomps, who are always tied to blocks but will try their damn best to attack you like a dog on a leash. Fun fact actually, the last 2 enemies I listed are actually based off some staff members' personal experiences. The Chain Chomps are inspired by a neighbor's dog that attacked Miyamoto as a kid, and the Boos are apparently based on director Takashi Tezuka's wife, who's usually shy but gets mad when he works late. This time, the boss fights are Starting with Boom Boom, he's probably the most common boss and he's pathetic. All he does is swing his arms, basically waiting to be jumped on. Here's the first Boom Boom fight and here's the last one. You'll notice how I have basically the same approach to killing him every time. Compare this to another repeating boss like Birdo from Mario 2 USA. They up the ante by adding in fireballs every now and then, and sometimes the Birdo will only shoot fireballs, so you'll have to use things like blocks to kill it. I think they try to make it harder by giving him wings, but regardless of that, it's really easy to just hit him as soon as he recovers from a hit. The Koopalings are more of a challenge than Boom Boom, but that isn't saying much. They run around the arena and use their wands to throw stuff like projectiles at you most of the time. Some of them do have their own unique gimmicks, but none of them are very memorable because of how quickly they can go down, to be honest. The final boss against Bowser is still pretty easy, but I like the idea. He tries to crush you above these destructible blocks, so you'll have to bait him into falling to his own death. After that, we finally rescue the princess, as she tries to trick us into thinking the princess is in another castle. You know I could have just not saved you, right? And after that, we finally end this spectacular game with a catchy credit song. It's great. In conclusion, this game really is something special. Judging it as a sequel to Lost Levels, it improves on literally everything that game established, while adding tons of new ideas to craft a wonderful game. It has great controls, great levels, one of my favorite selections of power-ups in the series, better graphics, and it's a lot more forgiving by providing the player tons of chances to gain extra lives and power-ups to help you. It even improves on the multiplayer mode by having the players swap after a level rather than just when one dies. I have no issue in calling this game a genuine masterpiece that's one of the best 2D platformers ever made. Seriously, this game is just so awesome. It's one of my favorite games in the series. If you haven't played this game for whatever reason, do yourself a favor and play it. It's very accessible and I promise you won't regret it. After Super Mario Bros. 3, Nintendo began work on their new 16-bit console, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or Super Famicom. Nintendo Research and Development 4 also began working on a new Mario game to showcase the console's power at launch. This game happened to be Super Mario Bros. 4 in Japan. Over here, it was called Super Mario World for whatever reason. Anyways, that game happened to be Super Mario World, coinciding with the launch of the SNES in all regions. Now, Nintendo definitely had some big shoes to fill after how amazing Mario 3 was, and well, they certainly lived up to it. Many people consider this one of the best Mario games ever made. But what do I think of it? Well, it's a great game, but is it better than Super Mario Bros. 3? Let's find out. After Mario and Luigi restore peace in the Mushroom Kingdom, they go on a vacation to Dinosaur Land with Princess Peach, which doesn't have that many dinosaurs now that I think about it. They're strolling on the beach until the princess gets kidnapped by Bowser because of course she fucking does, so you gotta go rescue her. Mario also finds an egg that a dinosaur hatches out of called Yoshi. He tells Mario that many of his other dinosaur friends have been sealed inside of eggs that are located in the Koopaling 7 castles, so you must go rescue all of Yoshi's friends on top of stopping Bowser. The graphics are obviously quite an improvement from the previous games because we're on better hardware of course, but I gotta say, I love how cartoony this game is. Yoshi's early sprites resemble a dinosaur a lot more, but the finalized sprite looks a lot more cute and cartoony, which let's be honest, it does look better. I also love the cutscenes that play after Mario beats a castle level. We get to see all of the comical ways he gets rid of the castles, like blasting it off into the sky, picking it up from the ground and throwing it like it's Mario Bros. 2, stomping on it, or my personal favorite, literally wiping it from existence. On top of that, you'll be traveling through worlds with names like Donut Plains, Chocolate Island, Vanilla Dome, and Cheese Bridge. They don't go very far with the food themes though. Like I guessed, Chocolate Island is all brown, and the shape of Donut Plains is kinda like a circle, but I don't see any cheese on the Cheese Bridge. The enemies themselves also show some personality, like how the Koopa Troopas try to crawl back into their shells, or how infuriated the Happy Wiggler gets when you stomp on him. You can see how hard the Rip Van Fish try to catch up to you, almost like they're super pissed that you woke them up from a nice little nap. And charging Chucks will literally signal to other enemies that you're here. This one is definitely the most charming out of all the classic games. The world map is also all interconnected, and it resembles an actual island a lot more. A really nice detail in my opinion is how the sunken ship before the Valley of Bowser is indeed one of the airships from Mario 3. It's some nice little continuity, and it provides a nice little detail as to how Bowser and his offsprings even got to the Dinosaur Island. The levels themselves aren't as drastically different as in Mario 3. We don't really have any desert levels or snow levels or lava levels, but you can still tell the levels apart from the theming alone most of the time, and the superior hardware just makes them look a lot better. Worlds don't have as many levels to them, so you can't just straight up skip some levels, and the wandering enemies on the map are also gone. Some events like the card game or the Toad Houses are also gone. It may seem bad at first, but when you think about it, this game doesn't have as much power-ups as Mario 3, which I'll get into later. I guess not being able to skip levels is a bummer, but levels are a lot longer in this game than in Mario 3. Most of them actually have checkpoints unlike that game, and to be honest, there weren't really any levels I would want to skip. This is probably the most comfortable experience among all the games I've looked at in this video, because there isn't a lot of challenge unless you're playing some of the bonus levels, but that doesn't really matter to me because the game is still a lot of fun. And like I just alluded to, if I wanted to play some hard levels, I'd head to the special world where some really tough ones await. Like Mario Bros. 3, this game gives you tons of chances to get extra lives to help out any inexperienced players. And would you look at that, you can actually save your progress. Not a huge fan of losing all my lives though. Once again, Mario controls really well. The P meter is gone, but in actuality, it was really just a visual representation of your speed, since you can still reach top speed and jump extra high if you get enough time. I feel like the control here is just a little bit better than Mario 3. Mario isn't as floaty anymore, for better or for worse. Mario can now kick objects up in the sky, but more importantly, there's the new spin maneuver. The spin doesn't let you jump as high, but you can one-hit kill some enemies that would take more than just a simple stomp, and you can destroy blocks too. When it comes to enemies you can't jump on at all like Boos, you can at least spin jump to bounce off of them. If you have a power up on you and you take a hit, you revert all the way back to small Mario again. But to counter this, there's the awesome new reserve power up slot. For example, if you have a fire flower and you find a cape feather in a block, you can use that cape feather and your fire flower will be put in the reserve slot, waiting for you to use it again by pressing the select button or taking a hit. The power up scene is a little lacking actually, at least compared to the last game. We have all the power ups that have been here since at the very beginning, but all the power-ups from Mario 3 are gone. To be fair, we do have a new power-up that's similar to the Tanuki Leaf, which is the Cape Feather. You can soar through the sky if you reach top speed, but unlike the other one that kinda just lets you fly until it makes you stop, with the Cape Feather you can glide through the air as long as you want, assuming you're able to rhythmatically press left on the D-pad to stay up in the air. A mechanic that's easy to learn but a bit hard to master, since if you're really good you can basically skip entire levels. You can slap enemies with your cape, which I actually find to be more reliable than the tail, and you can slow your descent by just holding the jump button rather than mashing it like it's Morgana from Persona 5. I must say though, the absence of the frog suit is a bit of a letdown, because it made water levels go by a lot quicker, and you know, water levels kinda suck, but hey, you can hold objects to swim faster. Don't even question it. If Mario's stomping power is so strong it can obliterate entire fortresses, he can probably tear his own balls off just trying to go for a scratch. There is no Hammer Bro suit either, and now that I think about it, Hammer Bros in general are gone. Thank God. Unless you count the amazing flying Hammer Brother, and yes, that is his actual name. In terms of having an enemy that's a pain in the ass, I guess we have the Charging Chucks. These football players will tackle you, throw footballs, and throw baseballs for some reason, like this guy has dementia or something and he forgot what sport he's playing. Dig up rocks and throw them at you, shadow clone jutsu, and he can even alert enemies of your presence. He's not really cheap like the Hammer Bros though. Still, a charging chuck suit would have been cool so I could tackle one of those motherfuckers, or even better, alert Luigi of this guy's presence and kick his ass. The Cape Feather isn't the only new power-up, because we have Yoshi, who is technically a power-up. To put it bluntly, Yoshi is a fucking menace. Mario can ride the green dinosaur like a horse, and he can eat just about anything in his path with very few exceptions. If he can't eat it, he can probably jump on it and insta-kill like the spin jump. And you can also bounce off of dangerous objects. He can't swallow Koopa shells, but depending on the color, he can do things like shoot fireballs or even fly. Yoshi can take a hit from enemies, but he'll be kicked off his back and he'll start running around everywhere. He can run off into bottomless pits, so if you lose Yoshi, you better hurry your ass up before he dies. Yoshi can't enter castles or ghost houses, which is kind of a bummer, but he would probably break those levels anyway. Overall, I really love Yoshi in this game. It's so fun to just use him to tear through everything in your path. Now that I think about it, the spirit of the Goomba shoe kind of lives on in Yoshi, since he can walk on basically anything. Miyamoto had always wanted for Mario to be able to ride on dinosaurs in the games, but he wasn't ever able to put that in there due to the NES and its limited hardware. There's one last power-up which frankly isn't much of a power-up, and that's the P Balloon. It inflates Mario as you control him hovering through the air. It's pretty slow, and if you get hit once with this thing, then you're dead. It isn't a traditional power-up like the Fire Flower and such, because you can't store it in your item slot, and you only get it from select blocks. I still kind of appreciate how it brings variety to the gameplay, since some levels, like this one in the special world, is designed around dodging projectiles with the P-Balloon while collecting more so you don't pop and die. Still, it's very situational, so it's hard to classify as a power-up. It more so just changes your moveset for a level. Mario World introduces a new type of stage, ghost houses. They're scattered across the map and they're like puzzle levels filled with ghosts, most of which can feel a little like mazes. They usually require you to do something with P-switches. These guys were actually introduced in Mario 3, but I just forgot about them to be honest. They switched coins to solid blocks and vice versa, which can make for some interesting puzzles that are never too hard, since the game doesn't give you that many options anyway. To be honest, these levels are a little mediocre. I was just never really a huge fan of them, but they don't make the game worse for me or anything. I know some people who do like these stages a lot. All of the games I've looked at so far are pretty damn replayable, except for Lost Levels, because replaying that game is a form of punishment, but Mario World takes this to the next step by having tons of secret levels to unlock and hidden pathways to find in levels that'll bring you to even more secret areas in the world map. Sure, Lost Levels did have a few extra worlds, but no one, and I mean no one, wanted to beat that game 8 fucking times. Those levels stayed lost for a reason, you know? On the world map, if a level has a red dot instead of a yellow dot, that means there's a secret exit somewhere in the level. Finding secret exits will require you to do many different things, like just going down a pipe, using the Cape Feather over obstacles, bringing Yoshi into levels to do something only he can do, and some require the use of switch palaces to make blocks. Some secret routes can lead to switch palaces, which will turn what were once outlined blocks into solid ones that can even give you power-ups sometimes. Some of the secret exits are a little bit too stupid to be honest, like this one in a ghost house will make you control these coins that come out of a block to make a staircase for you to just perfectly fit into this little area. You really just have to guess where it's going because you can't see shit. Also, am I just the only one who never knew you can even control these things? Like, am I stupid or does the game never tell tell you about this. Finding secret exits is mostly an optional side objective you can do, but a few times in the main game, some levels just won't take you anywhere if you beat it normally, so you'll have to find a secret exit somewhere. But fortunately, the game does tell you about how they exist, and I think you only have to do it like twice? Finding a secret path usually leads to a secret level, some of which may have even more secret exits. Finding the secret exit in the Donut Plains ghost house leads you to the top secret area, which you can always come back to grab any power-ups and a Yoshi, which is awesome. And it makes hunting for secret exits more bearable. Some levels may take you to a secret world, the Star World. This world has 5 stages, however none of the normal exits take you to the next level, so you'll once again have to find more secrets. I guess secret is the word of the day, huh? You know, for secret levels like these, they really aren't very challenging. They're usually very basic in their design, and locating the secret exits usually isn't hard either. If you beat all the levels in the Star World, you're taken to another secret world, the Special World. None of the stages in this world have secret exits. They're just point A to point B obstacle courses that'll really test your platforming abilities. Seriously, these levels are really fucking hard, and are a massive spike in difficulty compared to how laid back the rest of the game is. But frankly, it's never unfair like Lost levels, so it's tolerable. And this game's mostly easy nature makes these a nice change of pace, even if they were really fucking absurd with how much shit you have to dodge. The North American version of the game has some 80s slang for the Special World level names like gnarly, tubular, way cool, while the Japanese version has names like Champions Course, Enjoyment Course, and my personal favorite, even the Mario staff is impressed course. It's fitting for the levels it's used in, especially awesome, because that level drove me fucking crazy. But admittedly, getting rewarded with the title of Super Player after beating the final course in this world was very rewarding. The map even changes to more of a fall setting, and Koopa Troopas become whatever the hell these things are. Koji Kondo returns to compose the soundtrack, and he once again delivers an amazing score. Now that we're on 16-bit hardware, the sound quality has been greatly improved, and to support that is catchy songs. Something I really like about this game's soundtrack is how most of the tracks you'll be hearing actually reuse the same melody, but they change the instruments, speed, and pitch to give them all their different feels that capture the atmosphere of each stage. The overworld levels are bouncy and just make you kinda happy. The athletic theme is faster and more energetic because these levels usually require more skill. The underwater levels are a lot slower since, while Mario is slow underwater. The music kind of echoes when you're underground, very fitting for a cave. Also, whenever you're riding Yoshi, they always add some drums to the music that I've always liked. The castle levels capture a somewhat dreadful feeling because these are usually some of the tougher levels. Also, the sense of dread is supposed to represent the upcoming bosses, however, they aren't very challenging at all. The 7 Koopalings return as boss fights to cap off their respective worlds, but all of them are quite simple. I think they're actually easier than the ones in Mario 3, because those ones could be a little unpredictable with the projectiles, not to mention the floor usually isn't flat and the room is smaller. What I can appreciate is how these actually have more variety beyond just dancing in a room until you kill it. You may have to push them off a platform in lava, stomp on them coming from a pipe, or dodge them jumping off a wall. Like I said, they're never challenging though. My favorite boss is probably Reznor, which is reused a few times, usually in fortresses. All you gotta do is just hit these rhinos from underneath, but the spinning platforms and their fireballs make it harder than all of the Koopalings, and if you take too long they'll destroy the bridge, and you're forced to stand on the platforms. There's actually a hidden boss that can only get you by finding the secret exit in the Donut Plains secret house. It isn't very challenging, all you gotta do is just throw the blocks up in the air and hit him a few times, but I still think it's pretty neat how there's an entire secret boss like this. The final boss against Bowser is actually pretty similar to this. You have to throw these robots up at him while dodging a few attacks he sprinkles in there. His pattern is pretty predictable, so it never gets very hard, but I still like this fight just because it's the final boss. Once you beat Bowser, you finally rescue Princess Peach, and you get to listen to one of the best credit songs I've ever heard in a video game. It's some great stuff. So overall, Super Mario World is deserving of all the acclaim it's gotten over its 30-year lifespan. It's super charming, it has great controls with fun level design, the best replay value out of all the classic Mario games, and awesome power-ups like Yoshi and the Cape Feather. This game really is magical, dude. This is one that I highly recommend you play no matter the circumstances. You'll definitely have a blast, trust me. Now it's time to answer the question I asked at the beginning of this part. Is it better than Super Mario Bros. 3? Well, growing up, I've always preferred Mario 3, but now that I 100% completed Mario World for the first time in this video, I've only begun to appreciate it even more. So I think I can safely say that Super Mario World is the best 2D Mario game, at least in my opinion, of course. It doesn't have as much level variety as Mario 3, not as many power-ups, and like Mario 3, the bosses are pretty weak. Also, I've realized that this game doesn't even need as many power-ups as Mario 3. The ones we have are all great, but when you judge this game for what it is rather than what it isn't, you'll realize surprised that Mario World is an absolute classic that is still a masterpiece 30 years later. And with that, we can finally conclude this Super Mario Bros. Retrospective. So, too long didn't watch? Yeah, I like these games. Except Lost Levels. All of these games, not including Lost Levels of course, are at the very least good, and some I can say are masterpieces in game design. If you haven't played a 2D Mario game, or in general a Mario game, what the hell is wrong with you? But you know, it's never too late to make up for your sins and play some of these classics. If I had to rank them from worst to best, it would go Lost Levels, Mario 1, Mario 2, Mario 3, and Mario World, which barely beats Mario 3. In a perfect world where Lost Levels doesn't exist, then these games only go uphill in quality. These games have been ported many times. You can find the original ROMs online very easily if you're into that stuff, but Nintendo has re-released them quite a few times officially. The most popular one is the Super Mario All-Stars collection, released in 1993 for the Super Nintendo. It's a collection of all the games I've talked about, including Lost Levels, and they've all been completely remade. At least in terms of visuals. The games themselves are virtually the same, so if you were expecting to do stuff like pick up Koopa shells in Mario 1, then you may want to sit down for this. Mario 1 and Lost Levels still have stiff control, and Mario 2 and 3 are still great. The reworked visuals and soundtrack don't make it worse or anything, so I'd say these are technically the definitive versions of the game. I still kind of just play the NES ones more. Don't ask me why, because I don't know. The only issue I could really identify is how you can't really tell the moving blocks apart from the normal ones in the All-Stars version of Mario 3, and you could on the NES one, but at least the All-Stars version doesn't have all the visual glitches the original game had. Some versions even had Mario World, but Nintendo never re-releases that one for some reason. The All-Stars versions also saw releases on the GBA, which is my favorite example of the time Nintendo forgot how to count. Seriously, it goes 2, World, Yoshi's Island, and 3? What? The colors are a bit washed out in these versions, however, which can actually be a bad thing in a game like Yoshi's Island. They also talk in these versions. Regardless of which versions you play, all of these games, except Lost Levels, are worth your time. They're all classics that really helped bring video games back into popularity, so Nintendo, thank you for making these amazing games that I grew up playing, at least for most of them, and thank you for watching this retrospective. Bigger thanks if you actually sat through the whole thing, and didn't just skip to the end, because why not? Regardless, thank you for watching. Feel free to express any opinions you have about these games in the comments, and I hope you have a great day. See you later.